record on this computer. All right, we're recording. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I got a little code pen up right now, and I will go over the default parameters and how they work. So let's see here. So everybody should be able to see like a little code sandbox type thing. It's just very vanilla, as in the title. Hello, vanilla. It's vanilla JavaScript because default parameters, it's a JavaScript thing. That's not a React thing. That's not a Redux thing. It's JavaScript. That's how it works. So I know it was confusing for me too when I first saw them, like when state equals initial state in the parameter of a function. It's like, what's going on there? You know, I never seen anything like that before. So this would be just a little quick intro on how that actually works. So I'm going to create a function. I'm going to call it the default param function. And right now that's going to take in, it's going to take in a parameter. We'll call it the param. All right, and this is just a regular JavaScript function, and all it's going to do is it's going to return whatever the param is. So very simple function right here. It takes in a parameter and returns that parameter back out of it. And now I'm going to console log this. We'll say default param invoked. And we're going to take a look in this console. And we're going to see, I'll even clear this and kind of give it a quick refresh. Delete command save, we'll do it again. You can see it's undefined, right? Because we didn't give it anything. Now I could give this a value. I could say hello. And when it runs, now it returns hello because I gave it that parameter. It's just returning that. Now let's say we have a use case for this function to where if it's invoked like this, like we use it somewhere in our code, and it's not going to be given a parameter, we still want it to return something. That's where the default parameters come in. And how you do that in JavaScript is just an equal sign operator within the parameter of the function declaration. So here I'm going to make it say foo. And you'll see it returns foo on this console log with nothing in there. But if I put something in here like bar, now the function returns bar. But if I decide it's not going to be called with anything, I'll get back foo again. So that's what's happening in that reducer. When you see that state equals initial state, when the reducer initially runs through Redux's ecosystem, it doesn't give it any parameters. So you need to return something out of it so your code doesn't explode. So that in turn is the initial state value. That's why it's set to a default. Any questions? Awfully quiet.
No, it makes sense to me.
All right, everybody got that? Cool. All right, I'll stop sharing this one and we'll find something else to work on. Anybody have any questions about the project yet? Anything like that? Let me see what I got in the tank for some Redux stuff. What was the guided project? What did they do with their Redux for the guided project? Was it like a to-do app or something along that line, like a shopping cart thing, or do you guys remember?
It was this title thing and then this like member list.
Okay, member list. They're all pretty much the same. It's like a listing where you're adding and removing things like that. Let me see what I got stored here that I can show you guys Redux wise. If my console decides it wants to work. There it goes. What do we got in here? That's async Redux. I don't think you guys learned that yet. I think that's coming tomorrow. know what? We'll just create a new React app and we'll make some Redux stuff. How about that? Unless there's something here. What's your Redux project this evening? Is it car sales still? Has anybody opened it yet? It is car sales?
It's a movie list.
It's a movie list. Ah, cool. Then I could use car sales. That used to be the old Redux project. Let's see where I'm at with that. Let me open that up. Yes, we have. This project's already done. Let's check out master. And it looks like it was all written on the master branch. All right. Well, this has got all the work done to it. I'm trying to find something that doesn't have the work done yet. I could probably erase some things. You know what? Let me just go grab another project. I can do that a lot quicker. Clone this down real quick. All right, that one's there too. Just bear with me for just a little bit. I'm gonna clone a fresh copy of this car sales project and we'll go through that real quick. So that's installing. Try and get the screen split set up here. And share screen. All right, let's see how close this is. Well, let me just change that a little bit. Can you guys see the portion of my screen here with the code and the browser?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. All right, so I'm installing the car sales project, and this was this used to be the Redux project before they came up with the movie list one. So it'd be a good fun one for us to play with, throw some Redux around, kind of goof off. All right, that's done. Let's start and see if it runs. See if we didn't pull down a brand new broken one. It happens. Oh yeah, it's brand new broken. Ah, SAS. Let's see here. So this is why they don't use this project anymore. Of course. So I guess we could go over the README of this real quick. It is an older project, but you're doing the normal stuff as creating a fork copy, npm install start, creating a branch, and then the step one planning and action. So it's just like any other project. You want to familiarize with the structure of the project and what's happening, and make it work the way it's supposed to. But you have to use Redux to make it work. And step two, take action. It even tells you set up an empty reducer in initial state, set up your store and provider, and then start connecting the components as needed to replace the existing UI with the Redux UI. So let's see if this starts now. It looks like it installed. Say there's a chance. Did it not install Node SAS? It didn't. That is weird. Will it run now? Okay. npm uninstall. This might be a bad project to do this with. We'll remove that. We'll just try and install SAS itself. If this don't work, we're just going to make our own project real quick. Hey, there we go. All right, so this is the way the project was originally designed. And the objective is that whenever you add one of these features to the car, it populates the price and adds like another array over here of the added features, and then comes out of this array, and vice versa if you remove them. So we're going to go through the project and start implementing that just one little bit at a time. So we will start with app.js and see what it looks like. And if you look over here at the app, can everybody see the screen okay? Everything fine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You can see that they give us a state that they're just using an app. It's a hard-coded state, and they're passing that through props to all these other components that are in here that are controlling this. What our objective is going to be is we're going to carry this state in Redux, and we're going to distribute that and connect each component as needed to that Redux store to grab pieces of state that we need for that component. And then we're also going to create actions that allow us to change that state depending on what that is. So the first thing we'll start up is we're going to set up our reducer system. So we're just going to go into the source file. We're going to create a new folder. This is the way I like to do it. Everybody's different. I call it state. So this is where all of my state, reducers and actions, they all live within this directory. And for the simplicity of this, we're just going to create one called reducer, real creative on the name. And we'll create another one called actions. So we have actions and reducer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create just a generic reducer just to get the project off the ground. So we'll say const reducer equals a function that is going to have two parameters. Do you know what the two parameters of a reducer are?
State and action.
Yeah, that's right. State and action. And inside the reducer is basically just it's a switch case, which is like a giant if else statement. So we're going to declare that on a switch. And we're going to switch on that action type. So whatever type we give this action, it's going to run some chunk of code whenever it finds the match within the switch. If it doesn't find any matches, it's going to have a default, which that default is going to be just to return state. Now, right now, this is where that default parameter comes in, and we're going to want to export this too. So we're going to export that. So we have no defaults. We're going to grab that initial state off of that app. And we're going to go over here to app.js, and this whole state object right here, we're going to grab this. I'm going to make that my initial state of my reducer. So I'm going to drop that in here. Oh, I was at work all day and I'm on a Windows machine, but yeah, at home I'm on a Mac, so my key bindings are always off. So command copy, not control. There we go. And I'm going to call this initial state. So I'll change the name. So we have initial state, and then I'm going to set this default parameter of this reducer equal to that initial state. And what this does is, so when this runs the first time, like when your app loads and mounts, there's not going to be any parameters sent into this reducer. So it's going to say, okay, I've got no parameters. Initial state is going to represent state, and then the switch is going to run, and it's going to say, well, I have no action, so I'm going to hit my default case, which is just returning that state, which is the initial state. That's how the app's going to start. So that's where that default parameter comes in with Redux. So now that we have our base reducer, we could save this. We're going to go into index, and we'll see that nothing's really in here for our store or anything. We're going to check the package JSON and see if that stuff is installed. It is not. So I'm going to create another terminal. And I'm going to npm install Redux and React Redux. And then we'll use these to create our store. All right, we have those. Let's go into our index.js file. We're going to create the store here. So we're going to have to import a couple things that we're going to need for first. We're going to have to import something called create store. And that's going to come from Redux itself. So that's not a part of React. And then we're going to need what they call a provider, which is going to provide our app with the store. That is a React component that is given it to us from React Redux. So that's a good way if you're always confused, if you can't tell the difference between what's supposed to come from Redux and what's supposed to come from React Redux. I always think that anything that is React related has to come from React Redux, like JSX components or higher order components, things of that nature. Hooks in some cases, because Redux does have hooks that you can use. They would come from React Redux. Anything that lives outside of the React ecosystem that's just JavaScript would be like create store, or when you start applying middleware and using things like that, that would come from just the base Redux package. So we need one more thing. We need our new reducer. So let's go get it. So we're going to import our reducer from That should be in state reducer. And now we're going to create our store. So we'll say const store. It's going to equal the create store method. And the first argument of that is going to be our reducer. So now we have all that set up. The next step is to wrap our app component, our main app component, in the provider. So we're going to say provider. And we will wrap the app in that. Make it look kind of pretty. And we'll save that. It might break right away. It might not, but yep. So the provider needs a property to work, and the property's name is store. And we're just going to set that equal to the store that we just created above. So the React component from Redux is called store, the property that it takes in. And we created a variable called store using this method that represents our actual store. And we're just giving that to the provider here. Any questions at that point? Or at this point, I should say? Going once, going twice. All right, we'll keep moving forward. I'm gonna run the dev tools on this with the console, because we'll start console logging some things and throwing it around as we do this. So we have the store created. We have that initial state set up through that reducer. So let's go into app.js and start looking at our component structure. So we can see the header is requiring state.car, right? So we can get that from Redux. So let's go into our header app or our header component and see how that's working. So header is getting props car image, props car name. So that car and the car price is all coming from that state that's getting, or that property getting passed down from state in app.js. So we're going to start by connecting this to Redux and using that Redux store for it rather than passing it as a prop. And how we do that is we're going to use a method that comes from React Redux called connect. Connect is a higher order component that comes from React Redux that basically it wraps whatever component you clamshell it with and like hijacks its props and takes control of it and allows it to inject it into the props method of the component or into the parameters, end all be all. So we're going to say connect, and we're going to wrap that header in that connect method. Now, connect takes two parameters itself. The first one is a callback function that a lot of times is named like map state to props or map state. It's but basically it's just a callback function that takes the state from the store and returns whatever pieces of that state that you want to use. The second parameter is an object which holds all of the actions. So any functions that you need to run within the component that would control that state would go in that second parameter. Looking at this one, I don't see any functions needed or any actions needed here. So this would just be grabbing state. So we're going to create that function, and we'll call it map state just for simplicity. And that's going to take in state as a parameter. And we're going to return, it looks like state.car. And where I'm getting this state.car from is if I go to my reducer, this is my state, right? That's what's going to be coming back in that variable. So in here, that represents this. All this stuff that's passed out of our reducer for state starts out like this giant object. We only need access to this part of this. We don't need any of the additional features or anything else in the header from what I can see. It's just that car. So that's what we're grabbing there. So now we're going to go ahead and put this right in here. We'll call map state. And what this does is it maps state to props, as they say. So now if I console log props here, we're probably going to see Actually, we're going to overrun it with this here. Props.car name, image, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment out all this stuff here. And I'm going to go back into app.js and remove that property so we don't get confused between the two. So right now we're passing state.car. We're going to remove this prop altogether to where it's just a header. And it's going to blow up. It's going to say cannot read undefined of image. Then I'm going to resave this and it's going to be all happy. So I'm console logging the props here on header line 5. And you can see, I'll even refresh to verify. You can see that we're getting an object that has dispatch. This dispatch comes from that connect method. That dispatch is where it's, that's where our actions are run. And you can see we have a features array that's empty. We have an image, we have a name, we have a price. These look awfully familiar. If we go look at app.js, they happen to be all those properties of the car. So we're grabbing the right stuff. The difference is we're actually getting it from the Redux store rather than that prop that's being passed in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the naming on it a little bit so I don't have to rename all of the stuff in here. So we're going to return an object out of here. And I'm going to say car equals state.car. I'm going to save this now again real quick. And we're going to take a look at how the props changed. If you look, I created a car key now. And that car key has all the same features. The reason why I did that is that all I have to do now is uncomment this stuff. And it should work. And we got our image and we got our stuff. So we didn't get the car name though, did we? Oh wait, it's right there. And the price. So we have everything. So yeah, so props.car.price is now coming from this callback function through connect that's injecting it into props. And we can verify that by seeing header doesn't have any props anymore. It's connected to the Redux store. Any questions to this point?
Thanks, it's clear. Thank you.
Oh, am I doing okay?
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks.
All right, no problem. Well, we'll finish it up here. So we'll move on to the next component. Added features.
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay, cool. We're going to go to the next one, added features. And you can see this is taken in a prop called car, the state.car. So let's go take a look at that one. We can close our header. We're done there. So added features, what's that taken? All right, it looks like it looks for additional features. Oh wait, I grabbed the wrong one, didn't I? I did, hold on. The next one was added features. Man, this project was confusing. I'm glad they don't use that anymore for you guys. All right, so we have added features. It looks for the car. It looks for its features length and whatever length it has. Then it maps over each one of those items and returns an item. So this looks like it would be a features array that would be over here. And it's got a little P tag that says you can purchase items from the store. So this is basically this portion of the web page right here. All right, so we're going to connect this to Redux as well. So it's going to seem pretty redundant as we do this. We're going to import connect. Not connect 0, connect from React Redux. And we're going to give connect control of our added features. So we'll say connect. Go back. And we will wrap it in parentheses. That's what gives it that higher order control. And then a similar thing, we got to write a function to grab our car. And for this one, I'll do it a little differently. I'm going to show you the lazy way of doing this when you do it a lot. Is I know the first parameter is a callback function, and it's just going to inject whatever I want into props. So instead of writing out a function, I can actually just put it right within here. And we can say state, and we're going to return an object. Actually, we'll make this an implicit return object. I'll say car : state.car, like that. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to console log these props. If you guys haven't noticed, I'm a big fan of console logs. They tell you everything. I might go back into my header and remove the one I had in there though, because that's going to clutter up the terminal. So we'll save that. Then we're going to go back into added features. I'm going to comment out all of this stuff for now so it doesn't break on me. And I'm going to come into app and I'm going to remove this prop, because that should be coming from my Redux store now. So yeah, added features line 7. If you look, we got pretty much the same object that we had for our header. We just wanted the car, because we dissected this component and saw that all it needed. I should be able to uncomment this and have it work. But all it's accessing is the car. You see props car features, and then for each feature, it does a thing. So if we save this with an uncommented, it still doesn't break and everything works. Now we have our second component connected. So let's move on down the line. Let's go back to app.js and we're going to do additional features. And if you look, this is a different prop. This one isn't after the car, it's after additional features. So if we look at our state, we can see that's a completely separate key. That's a separate array. We can connect that as well. So let's go do that. Let's get rid of the header. Go back to app, additional features. We're after this guy. All right. Once again, we're going to import connect. We're going to get that from React Redux. And we're going to give that connect function control. I'm typing in control of our additional features component. So now it's hijacked its props. And we know this took in additional features. This one, I'll type it out again. I'll say const, we'll say map state to props. So we'll give this one even a different name. We'll say map state to props. And that's going to be a function that's going to take in state. And here we're going to return an object that's going to be additional features. Yep. And I'm just copying the name because I see it up here. So if you're wondering where I'm getting the name, I just want to mimic that name so I don't have to rewrite all the JSX. And that's going to be state.additional features. So we'll come down to connect. We'll give it our function we just created as a callback. All right, we'll save that. We'll come back to app and we're going to remove this one and see if it breaks. We're going rogue here. I didn't comment anything out. I'm just going to see if it blows up or not. Hey, and it still works. So we could verify that on our console log as well. If you want to check console log props. And we should see in our terminal, you can see our props now has an additional features key that has the array with all of the things. Questions to this point? We're motoring right on through.
For me, it's clear. Thanks.
Cool. All right, we'll move on. We're going to go back to app. We got one more to connect, which is the total, which looks like it takes in the car and the additional price. So we're going to tie that into connect, and then we're going to create some actions real quick. And the actions are going to be what's controlling these buttons and making it all work. And then at that point, the project is done and we have completed Redux. So let's go do that real fast. This one's done. We're going to go to, that was the total component. So props.car and props.additional price. So let's import connect. All right, let's give connect control of our total component. And then we're going to create our function. I'll call this one map state again, just to going to bring in state as a parameter. Wow, that didn't work out well, did it? State. And here we're going to return a couple different things. It's going to look a little different because we need the car and we need the additional price. So we're going to say car is going to be state.car because we already know we've been able to do that in the past from that state object. But we got to go find this additional price. So I'm going to go look at my reducer with my state here, my initial state, and I can see the additional price is just a key right on the top level. So we can grab that from directly off the state object as well. We can say additional price. I did spell that right. I think so. This is going to be state additional price. So we got those both defined and we'll put it in here. And that shouldn't break yet. We're going to go to app and we're going to remove these. Totally trying to get it to break so we can debug it, but I don't think it will. Nope. All right. We have all of our main components now connected to the Redux store. And you can see that we are no longer passing a single prop into any of these components. They're all drawing right from Redux itself to the point where you can see this state object now is not even used. We can make that go away and still not break anything. Man, app.js just got really clean, didn't it? Really small, really concise. So let's go figure out what else we got to do to make this stuff work. Because when I click this button, I want to be able to add things to the car and remove it. So we're going to start with the additional features array. So we're going to go into the additional features component. And I can see that additional feature is another component of that. We're going to take a look in there. Ah, see, add an on click that will let you add a feature to your car. So here, this is where we got to create an action. So let's take a look at our reducer, see what our initial state object is. We want to create an action on a button click that takes whatever object we see here and puts it in here in this features array, and then removes it from this array. So basically when we click like add V6 engine, it would remove from this side and it would show up on the added features portion over here. So that's the type of action that we're going to create to make that work. So I'm going to go to my actions file. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create what they call an action string, which is what your switch case operates on. So I'm going to say const, we'll call this add feature. I'm going to set that equal to a string of the same value. And did Warren go over the importance of why we do this rather than just using a string? Just random question.
Because action type take a string.
Exactly, but you could use just a string without declaring it as a variable. The reason why it's done with a variable name is it's to eliminate typo errors. So like if like let's say I had my if I went to my reducer and I created this case here and I said case, and you just use a string, I'm gonna say add feature, and I spelled it like that, and then I did a return. For now, we're just gonna return state, or we'll return an object that's spreading out state. All right, so I have this case right here. And then I build an action. Let's say that, let's build an action real quick and do that. We're going to say const, we'll call this add feature as well. It's going to be our action. And it's going to take in, this is going to be taking in a feature. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be returning an object that has the type of, and here I'm going to say add feature. like so. I'm gonna give it a payload of the feature. All right, so we have an add feature function. Let's export this out. Matter of fact, we need to export both of these. It's been a while since I wrote Redux without async Redux to where that looks weird to me. Maybe it is. We'll find out here in a minute. So now I'm going to go to my additional feature where this onClick was, or actually to my reducer here. All right, so I have that all set up with just string values. We're not using that case anymore. And I just want to emphasize this because I had this bite a coworker and a friend in labs because they got lazy and decided they didn't want to do that. And they chased themselves for 2 days trying to figure out why this didn't work without an error. Let's see here. That was in additional feature. Okay, so we're going to import connect. We want to connect this component to Redux, and we're connecting it not because we need state, but we need the action. We need access to dispatch, so we could dispatch an action to our reducer. Redux, and then we're going to import our action. And this is going to be add feature, and it's coming from state actions. And then here, we got a button with the class name that we're going to say onClick. And we're going to do some things in the onClick. Not yet. We got to connect this first. Matter of fact, let me remove that so it doesn't error out while I'm doing this. All right, we're going to connect. All right, we're going to give connect control that component. Now our first argument in connect is map state, or like a callback function that represents mapping state to our props. We don't need that here, but we still have to put something in that field. Otherwise it's going to not move to the next parameter. So we're going to start this with null. That's where our map state to props would normally be. And then our second parameter is an object. This is where our action goes. And I'm going to put add feature in there. And just to show you, I'm going to console log props now. And hopefully we didn't break it yet. And you can see my props, it ran 4 times because there's 4 of these. You can see that I have an add feature function now that has control of that. So now I can take that onClick. And what I'm going to do with that onClick is I'm going to call props.add feature. Now, this is a common mistake that a lot of people make. Instead of on the onClick, they'll just say onClick add feature because you're bringing it in right here to the same component. It will not work because Redux and the Redux store did not know it happened. In order for them to know it happened as if they're watching it, it has to be invoked through props because that's where it's getting it from here. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this and you go, man, my action's not working. I don't know why. It's more than likely because you didn't invoke it through props. All right, so on that, we're going to save and we should be able to click like this and nothing's happening. Oh, why is nothing happening? Let's go find out. Let's go to our reducer, and inside my reducer here, I'm just going to console log action and see what's happening. And I'm going to click this. Okay. Now I can finally show you guys the point I was trying to get to. I'm going to get rid of this log here. So with that console log in our reducer, we have a typo here, right? And we want to run this function right here, this return method here, and we even say console.log, say fired, something along that line. Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm sorry about
Bless
that.
you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you very much. So we are expecting to see this console log of fired whenever we click one of these buttons. And you'll see, we don't see it. All we're seeing is this type add feature. All right, and you can see the type add feature is a string. We have a typo here, but there's a big problem with this. There's no errors. There's nothing lighting up red. There's nothing telling me something's wrong. Because a switch case is looking for a string value and it sees a string value, even though it's not the right one, it sees a string value. So it assumes everything is fine. And that's where that variable name comes into play. So now if we take and we actually use this variable we created to where this type is now the add feature variable. And then we bring that into our reducer. So up at the top here, we're going to import it in from our actions file. So import add feature from our actions, and then we're going to change this from the string to add, and I'm going to call it the factory, like I misspelled it before. You see what's happening now? It's lit up red. And when I save it, my app locks up on the same typo. But because I gave it a variable name rather than a string, I can get an error and it's going to save me days of trying to chase it down. Does that make sense?
Yes, it
Yes,
makes sense.
totally.
Yeah, so now I change it to the proper word and everything's good. And now when I click this, I should see fired. Hey, look, it's working. Yay. All right. So that's why that's done. If he didn't go over that, at least I did. I can consider the day productive now. So when we add a feature, we want to take whatever feature we passed in. So if we looked here at our payload at the time, a payload's a whole class. It shouldn't be a whole class. Oh, we haven't passed a payload yet, have we? Let's go to our additional feature. All right, yeah, we haven't passed anything to this. We just invoked it. So
Sorry, I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
Why here we don't use like map state to props, this function?
Because we don't need access to state.
Okay, but how know the props dot future here dot name?
Because this specific
In line
component,
12. I mean in line 12.
yep, this specific component is a mapped component of its parent. So we're gonna go to, this is additional feature. I'm gonna go to additional features. You can see right here, it is a mapped component. So it gets its props from an array, from that item. So you can't, you can connect this to Redux, but it's very inefficient and hard to do. So just think any time that you have a mapped component, like you see this word map, so you have like an array of objects, you're going to return one of these for each one.
Yes.
It's going to get its props from here rather than Redux.
Oh, it mean if I have a map, will be better to do like this way, yes?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Display. Yes, thank you.
No problem. So that's why we didn't need state. All right, so we got additional feature. I got to give it that feature. So it's going to be props.feature. And we actually only need the actually, you know what? Let's console log this and see what we get first before we start playing around too much more. Let's close some of this stuff up. Let's go to my reducer. I'm going to bring back my console log. I like to put a console log up here of logging the action. While I don't have like any logger software or anything installed, because I can see what I'm hitting the reducer with every time I make any kind of action. I can see my type is add feature and my payload was the whole object. I technically don't need the whole object to do this. So I don't think I do. Let's you know what, let's keep the object just in case, because there are things that we might have to do with that. Let's go like let's just play it by ear. Let's see what happens. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make it to where that payload is going to add that object to the features. So yeah, we do need that whole object. So I'm going to say state dot, okay, we're spreading out state, I'm sorry. Car is going to be the equivalent of state.car. And if you notice, the spread operator starts with the highest level of state whenever you're using it. So I had to spread out state, and then when I got into the car, I had to spread out state.car. That could be confusing sometimes. And then I'm going to say features. So I finally got to my features object. And I'm going to spread out. I'm going to say state.car.features. And then I'm going to add my action.payload. So that looks a little funky, but what I did is I actually worked my way from the top level of state here. I worked my way down to this features array. And what I want to do is whatever is currently existing in here, I want to be able to add something to it. So I spread out whatever might be existing and I added my payload. So at this point, if I click add V6 engine, I don't get it. Why? Why is it not working? Okay, I broke it. Let's think here. Why? Console log action, case add feature, return state, car. Let's go try and get a log on that and see what's happening. So that would be the, I put it in the wrong spot. No, I'm in the wrong spot. I'm in the right spot. So added features. Let's console log our props here. Let's see why we're not working now. Now we're live debugging because I broke it. All right, so car has a features array that's empty. I click add. It did fire a re-render. Aha, I got a typo. You see that? How I caught that with the console log?
Nice.
Yeah, I got a typo. That's why it's not working. Let's go to reducer, fix that said typo. Now it might work a little better. Hey, look, there they are. They're popping up
Hey.
over there. So now we're adding, but see how I'm able to add? Now it's like losing its mind because it has the same key. That's because we're not removing it from this array when we add it to the first one. So we got to add some functionality to our reducer to do that. So where we're adding this here, we want to remove it from this additional features. So we're going to say additional features is going to be equal to, we'll say state dot additional features. I'm going to use an array method here called dot filter. And we're going to say for each item in there, we're going to return the ones that that are not where item dot ID is not equal to the action dot payload dot ID. Oh, and I'm forgetting a comma, I think. Or am I? Oh, I accidentally erased the closing curly brace, didn't I? There we go. So that looks a little funky too. Does it make sense what I did there? I basically took the existing array and I'm filtering it out and I'm returning everything that was in the array except the object that equals the ID of the one that I clicked on. Which, you know, in backwards logic actually removes it. Now, if I click add V6 engine, it should pop off that array and go over here. And if I add premium sound, it does the same thing. And again, and now we're empty. We don't have anything left. The only thing that we don't have working, it looks like, is the additional price. So let's fix that real quick. Additional price that is displayed, I think, in the title. or the total. State dot additional price. Yep. So the car price never changes. We got to adjust that additional price. So let's go back into our reducer and we're going to fix that as well. So we have additional price. That's going to be equal to state dot additional price. Plus action dot payload dot price. So we're going to take whatever additional price we already had, and we're going to add the price of the feature that we clicked on when we sent it over there. So this title should change its value now. Maybe not. Oh wait, no, it's the total amount. See how it went to 27. Let's add another $500. Add another 250. So it's all working. We're getting close. That's one down. We only have one left. So let's do that. Let's make it so we can remove a feature and then we'll call it done. Let's create another action. So here we're going to create an action string right away because we don't want to have those typo issues. We'll call this remove feature. All right, and then I'm going to create a function, an action creator. Export const, we'll call this remove feature. Remove feature equals, and it's going to take in a feature just like the other one did. And we are going to return an object that is going to be an action object. So it's going to have a type, and the type is going to be remove feature. And the payload is going to be the feature that we want to remove. Oh, not all caps, so. All right, so let's bring this into our reducer. Actually, let's tie this in first where it has to go. So obviously when we click on one of these and we add it, when we click this X, we want to be able to remove it and take it back out. So we're going to go into what that is. That is the added feature. That would be this component. You can see they say add an on click here. So it's going to be the same thing. We're going to import connect from React Redux. And then we're going to import our action creator, which is remove feature from our actions. We're going to come down here. We are going to connect our component. And this is just like the last one. This is a mapped component, so we don't need access to state here. So we're just going to pass the null for the first parameter. And our second parameter is an object that's going to have a key and a value both equal to remove feature. And we'll add our on click on this. And here we're going to say props. Don't forget that props, or it doesn't know what happened. Remove feature. But I almost did it again. We have to give this some data. So I'm going to put it in a callback within the on click. So I can pass a parameter to it that is going to be the props.feature. So we're passing that data into that function. So whenever we click on this, it passes that into our action. That is the feature. It adds it to an action object as the payload and sends it over to our reducer. So now we're in our reducer. Now we need to make a case to make that happen. Man, my allergies started firing up for no reason. So if I sound a little stuffy or bottled up, I'm sorry. So we're going to have a case of remove feature, and it should auto imports, a beautiful thing. It brought it in for me. And we're going to return our new state object. We'll start out by spreading out the original state object. And now we got to think about removing this feature. So this action is going to come into play when there are things in this features array that we want to pull out and put back in here. And we got to, of course, reduce the price and everything else. So it's basically reverse logic of adding the feature. So we'll start with additional price. We'll work from the top on the way down. So additional price. That is now going to be the current additional price minus the action dot payload dot price. So remember, our payload represents one of these objects. All right, now we got to go back into our car objects. We got to get our way into this features array so we can remove an item out of it. So now we're going to declare our car key, a new car key. That's going to be an object. We're going to make a copy of it. All right, and then we're going to declare our features key. And what this is going to be, it's just going to be the original one. Except we're going to filter it out. We're going to say for each item that's in the features, we want to return the item .id that is not equal to our action .payload ID. So it's basically the same thing we did up above. Just rather than doing that on the additional features, we're doing it on the features array inside the car. And then lastly, we're going to do our additional features, which is going to be, oh, I'm missing a comma or something. It's mad at me. All right, so additional features, this is going to be an array that's going to be a copy of what is already there. And we're just going to add our action payload to it. So this is like reverse logic. It's just going to put things back when we decide to remove them. So now if we add the V6 engine, the premium sound, and the rear spoiler, but we decide that we don't want the spoiler, that's like so 2005, we kick it back off and we break it. Yes, beautiful. Okay, it's saying state additional. What did I misspell? Features state features dot filter. I misspelled something there. Maybe.
Is it line 38?
Line 38.
Not state that additional features?
No, it should be state dot car
That card.
dot features. Yeah, good call though. That was right where it should have been. So let's add these again. Let's remove the spoiler and it's back. See how it pops it back off. Our price goes back down. We can add and remove things and we're doing it in full Redux fashion. All right, that's it. That's that whole project that they used to have.
Nice.
Any questions?
Thank you, thanks.
I don't have a question about this one, but I do have a question about the project whenever you're done with this one.
Yeah, well, I'm done. What's up?
Yeah, you mind if I share my screen?
Not at all. Go for it.
Thank you, Chris.
No problem.
I'm just a little stuck because I'm on the line 37 in the README.
Okay.
The movie list component prints all of our movies to the screen, right? And it's telling me to use the connect method, which I did, to map the movie state value into props. Replace our static movie variable with that prop. So I don't know what that's asking me. So
okay, well, you created a map state to props function there. So that's going to represent your state. And what you do is you actually have to put that into the first parameter of connect to inject it into the props of the movie list component. Now you're still not going to get anything yet because you got to return your state object.
right.
So this is looking for movies, which is currently an empty array, right?
Yeah. So it's not
All
an
right.
object.
It's going to be it's going to be an object eventually, but you want to pay attention to what your initial state is, because you want your initial state to kind of mimic the flow.
My initial state, which is in my reducer, right? This
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, so you can see initial state is an object that has a movies array that you're importing the data in. So here in map state to props, remember that state parameter in that map state to props function that represents the state object of the store. So we'll do a return in map state to props with parentheses. Oh, I'm sorry, curly braces. All right, and here we're going to say movies colon state dot movies. Yeah, so now in props, if you were to console log props of this movie list component, you would see props dot movies is your actual state. So what they want you to do now is they want you to replace it. So movies was an empty array that is map it over in that table body right there. Yeah, so to eliminate this, all you have to do is type props dot in front of that. And then it's using the movies from the store.
Do I do that here as well?
Yep. And see if it's broke. It's either broke or you have a
Oh.
series of movies now.
Yeah, it's showing now.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. You got any questions on what just happened?
Yeah, I did this earlier. I thought it was the right thing to do, but then I just didn't have this, so it was breaking because apparently I wasn't passing the state dot movies as to why it was breaking. But now I get it.
Cool. All right.
Thank you.
No problem.
So I have to figure out how to end this. There you go.
There it is. All right. Any other questions before we shut it down? Going once,
Thank you
going
very much.
twice.
Thank you.
Very helpful.
No problem. Glad I could help. I'll post the
Thank you so
recording as soon
much.
as it's done. Anytime.
Thanks so much.
Have a good one.
You too, thanks.